The story opens with a young girl named Mordelka crying and begging the hero, Haji, not to leave. Comforting her, he promises that they will travel the land together once she grows into a strong warrior. Instantly captivated, she dedicates her life to rigorous bodybuilding for his sake. After years of intense training, she finally matures and achieves her dream of joining his party. During a fierce battle against a massive dragon, he instructs the team to wait for an opening while their priest activates defensive magic. However, she ignores the plan and charges forward in her heavy armor. She executes a devastating attack that splits the giant beast in two, instantly defeating it. Expecting praise for her incredible feat, she turns to him, only to find him fussing over the party's mage, Lisa. He gently checks the mage's injured leg, leaving Mordelka feeling completely ignored. The priest scolds him for being so careless around women, but he simply brushes off the warning. Frustrated by the lack of attention, she storms over to a nearby rock and smashes it. The impact sends heavy debris flying straight up into the air before it comes crashing down directly onto her head. Taking 200 points of damage, she collapses to the ground and dramatically complains about injuring her leg, hoping to finally win his sympathy. The priest immediately offers to heal her, but he steps in and stops her. After checking their stats, he points out that he has over 700 health points, Lisa has 200, and the priest has over 300, while she possesses an absurd total of 2,010. With such massive health and automatic regeneration, he argues that wasting the team's magic points on her would be pointless unless there is a real emergency. To him, it only highlights how dependable and powerful she truly is. Unfortunately for her, the logic completely ruins her attempt to get closer to him, and she is left nearly in tears as her body heals itself too quickly. Later that evening, Mordelka sits on her bed trying to figure out how to make herself weaker. Since leaving Haji is unthinkable, she decides to rely on her feminine charm instead. She remembers the party's healer using a special cream to improve his skin and suddenly gets inspired. Pulling out a captured slime, she compares its soft, jiggly texture to expensive skincare products. Before long, she fully convinces herself that beautiful skin will eventually lead straight to a marriage proposal from him. Determined to begin her beauty plan, she approaches the tiny creature. The slime instantly panics and desperately tries to escape. She chases it around the room, attempting to lure it out from under a table. In the next room, he hears the loud commotion and starts wondering what kind of chaos she is causing now. She finally catches the slime, but it slips through her fingers and falls straight down her armor. A loud scream echoes through the room as the freezing slime wiggles around inside her clothes. Hearing her panic, he rushes over immediately. Unable to pull the creature out, she squirms helplessly while the slime tickles her so badly she nearly cries, laughing. In the middle of the chaos, her thoughts spiral toward everything she still dreams of: going on dates, holding hands, and wearing cute outfits just for him. Then he suddenly bursts into the room, snapping her out of her frantic imagination. Seeing his dependable presence reminds her of the times he carried her when they were children. Her feelings for him come rushing back so strongly that she faints on the spot. When she wakes up, she finds herself gently held in his arms. He calmly assures her that the slime is already gone. Completely flustered, she quietly thanks him, convinced this has finally become her perfect romantic moment. But the fantasy shatters instantly when she wonders how he managed to catch the slime. He casually admits that since she was thrashing around so much, he simply reached and grabbed it directly. Mortified beyond belief, she screams that he skipped several important relationship steps before delivering a devastating punch that instantly knocks him unconscious. The poor healer later has to work overtime just to revive him. Mordelka desperately wants to develop feminine charm, so Haji will finally see her as a woman. She takes up weightlifting, hoping it will help, but it only results in her strength stats rising even higher. Later that morning, she stands in front of her mirror, intentionally taking a long time to get ready just to act like a stereotypical lady. While she practices winking, he suddenly walks in, casually explaining that he was so tired he mistook her room for his own. He proceeds to use her sink and shaving cream right in front of her. She is heartbroken, realizing he treats her completely like a male roommate. Later, the group goes on a mission to hunt poisonous, shiny swallowtail butterflies. She brings a bug net and an insect cage, which makes Lisa and the party's healer laugh because they think she is treating the deadly creatures like ordinary bugs. But she actually has a secret plan. She wants to collect the butterflies' glittering rainbow scales because they are used to make a very popular eyeshadow. She believes that if she catches and breeds the butterflies, she can use the makeup to look more beautiful and finally make him fall in love with her. When the first butterfly appears, her fighting instincts completely take over. Eager to secure her makeup ingredients, she raises her net to gently catch her prey. However, her overwhelming strength turns the simple swing into a devastating attack, slicing the massive butterfly completely in half with the net itself. The rest of the party watches in awe, praising her unbelievable toughness. Merdelka stares at the crushed bugs in disbelief, wondering how she keeps accidentally killing them when she only means to capture them. Haji praises her destructive momentum but refuses to be outshone. He begins charging a massive fire spell, intending to burn the remaining swarm to a crisp. Panicking that the fire will completely destroy the precious cosmetic scales she needs, she violently shoves him out of the way. The push is so forceful that his health plummets to a dangerously low 23 points. Gasping for the healer's help, he accuses her of going completely berserk. She quickly apologizes, instructing the group to stay put while she handles the monsters solo. The healer urgently warns her that the nest ahead is massive and that the iridescent swallowtail scales cause severe paralysis, but she ignores him and sprints deep into the woods. A few minutes later, she finds the heart of the swarm. Thrilled by the sheer number of butterflies, she prepares to swing her net, but suddenly feels unnervingly hot. A severe, feverish heat washes over her, and her body grows incredibly heavy. She fumbles with her gear, feeling dizzy and numb. She realizes too late that she inhaled a massive dose of the butterfly's paralyzing toxin. Her legs wobble uncontrollably as the venom takes hold. Suddenly, a massive queen butterfly appears. The paralyzing venom completely overtakes her, leaving her frozen in place. She watches helplessly as the giant insect prepares to devour her, frantically wishing she could overcome the poison. Just as she runs out of time, he leaps from the canopy above. Using his signature attack, he creates a massive blast that instantly obliterates the queen and her minions. After the fight ends, she sees him carrying her gently in his arms like a princess. She feels extremely happy and thinks the moment is very romantic. Lisa and the healer arrive while he calmly scolds her, saying that they are a team and she should not run off by herself again. Because he sounds so worried about her, she excitedly starts thinking he might confess his love or even propose to her someday. But her romantic thoughts are suddenly ruined when he asks to put her down because his arms are hurting badly. After setting her down with a tired groan, he stretches and casually says that she was much heavier than he expected because of her strong muscles. She becomes deeply embarrassed and angry. Feeling insulted, she punches him and sarcastically says sorry for not being as light as a fairy. The next day, she desperately plucks the petals off a massive carnivorous monster as if it were a tiny daisy, playing a violent game of he loves me not. Her crushing love for Haji makes her chest ache, leaving her barely able to breathe. Lisa nervously begs her to stop, noting that the terrified creature has already given up fighting. Later, while walking with the party, she frustratedly realizes that she has made zero romantic progress because he only ever thinks about adventuring. When he notices her staring and asks if anything is wrong, she forces a smile and brushes it off, secretly worrying that she lacks feminine charm. The mage then announces their next quest, slaying a band of thieves who possess a legendary item called the Gown of the Ultimate Lady. It is a highly coveted accessory known to make anyone who looks at the wearer instantly smitten. However, he casually dismisses the item, stating that the feminine armor has nothing to do with their all-male group. His comment deeply stings her, proving once again that he completely ignores her gender. Realizing this gown could be the ultimate solution to make him see her as a woman and finally propose, she excitedly asks the party's healer for the hideout's location. As soon as the healer points out a cave 15 minutes away, she sprints off at full speed. He watches her vanish in total confusion, while the rest of the party simply prays for her enemies. She arrives at the cave in record time. When the guards demand to know who she is, she angrily tells them to shut up, having zero patience for idle chatter. Terrified by her overwhelming murderous intent, the guards run inside and frantically warn their boss that a literal ogre is attacking. The boss steps out to investigate, but before he or his men can even react, she launches a devastating first strike to claim her prize. Merdelka easily vanquishes the thieves. Standing over them, she demands they hand over the legendary accessory. The badly beaten bandit leader eagerly offers her a legendary sword instead, but she angrily corrects him, demanding the gown of the ultimate lady. The terrified leader guides her to his private quarters, which conveniently features a full-length mirror and a changing curtain. Smiling at the setup, she forces the captured thieves to wait outside the curtain and act as her audience for a fashion show, wanting to test the gown's charming effects before showing it off. She tries on several outfits from the massive stash. However, when she steps out in the first dress, the bandits burst out laughing. She demands feedback, and the terrified men scramble to compliment her, accidentally praising how incredibly buff and strong she looks. Enraged by the masculine compliments, she punches the leader again and storms back behind the curtain. She cycles through several ridiculous costumes, including a leopard print, a devil bodysuit, and a pop star outfit, before finally putting on the legendary gown. When she steps out this time, the thieves are instantly mesmerized. Just then, Haji, Lisa, and the healer arrive at the cave. Seeing him, she excitedly models the dress, eagerly asking if he is charmed by her debut. The healer quickly ruins her excitement by explaining that the gown's magic only charms enemies, not allies or teammates. Not understanding her romantic feelings at all, he casually says the dress looks pretty good, though it protects her less than her normal armor. He also tells her that she is already so strong that her equipment does not really matter. She feels heartbroken and upset because her plan failed once again. Meanwhile, the thieves are now completely enchanted by the dress and kneel before her, begging for her affection. Irritated and disappointed, she kicks them away and angrily declares that the legendary gown is useless. Merdelka easily takes out a massive monster. Shortly after, Haji announces it is time for a lunch break. Lisa eagerly reveals that she prepared enough food for the entire party. Both he and the healer shower her with praise, complimenting the meal's delicious and nutritious qualities. He innocently adds that her essential domestic skills will make her a great wife someday. The compliment makes Lisa blush deeply, but it leaves Merdelka feeling completely alienated, as she has never cooked a meal in her life. Determined to outdo the mage and win his affection, she decides to gather her own superior ingredients. She wanders into the woods and immediately encounters a giant killer mushroom. She effortlessly butchers it, deciding it will make a great base for her dish. Deciding she needs eggs next, she boldly invades a dragon's nest. When the mother dragon fiercely attacks her, she fights back, casually scolding the massive beast for being so selfish over a single egg. She continues her violent foraging spree, terrifying monsters she doesn't even recognize until she accumulates a literal mountain of bizarre ingredients. Confident that his taste buds will appreciate her hard work, she returns to camp. She happily throws on an apron and begins cooking. The party is initially relieved to see her safely return, but their relief turns to utter confusion as she casually tosses in cracked dragon eggs and a mandrill liver. When she finishes, she proudly presents her dish, claiming it is a curry filled with her love. However, the meal glows a sickly neon color and emits a horrific stench. Lisa and the healer take one look at the foul concoction and immediately vomit. Deeply nauseated, the healer drags the sickened mage away to recover. Undeterred by his teammates' reactions, he thanks her for the meal and takes a generous bite. Before he can even swallow his second spoonful, blood begins pouring from his nose and ears. The violently poisonous dish causes him to collapse to the floor with a heavy thud. Immune to the deadly toxins due to her overwhelmingly high stats, she casually eats her own portion, completely confused as to why everyone else is struggling. The next day, she incorrectly assumes her dish was simply a bit too spicy and promises to cook for him again. To the absolute horror of Lisa and the healer, he enthusiastically agrees to eat her next meal, proving that his heroic recklessness extends even to his stomach. The day after the expedition, Lisa and the party's healer complain about being completely exhausted. Noticing their fatigue, the hero declares they will take the next 3 days off. This greatly excites Merdelka, who sees the perfect opportunity to finally ask him on a date. Seeking advice, she visits the healer's room and asks for hypothetical date ideas. The healer cleverly suggests dressing as a farm girl to orchestrate a dramatic, theatrical romance scenario in a field. However, before she can get into the bizarrely intense details, Lisa bursts into the room and interrupts. She scolds the healer for the weird suggestion and instead lists out normal date ideas, like going shopping, visiting a trendy cafe, or seeing a fortune teller. Completely overwhelmed by the conflicting advice, Merdelka thanks them both and leaves. Pacing the hallway, she struggles to figure out how to approach him. Suddenly, he startles her. Misinterpreting her anxious fidgeting, he casually points to the restroom and tells her it is all hers. She quickly corrects him, noting it is the men's room, and nervously asks if he is free to explore the town with her tomorrow. When he cheerfully agrees to spend the day together, tears of joy well up in her eyes. Remembering the girl's advice, she asks what kind of outfit he prefers on a woman. He thinks for a moment and admits he likes her in her normal armor because it makes her look strong. Flustered and completely overjoyed that he explicitly likes her usual look, she sprints away in a blind panic. Moving at an unbelievable speed, she crashes straight through the inn's wall instead of taking the time to open the door. Despite looking ridiculous while fleeing, her heart soars with dreams of walking down the aisle. Unfortunately, her destructive exit ruins her romantic plans. The next day, Rather than going on a date, he spends the morning hammering nails. He cheerfully remarks that they are lucky the innkeepers let them off easily, even though it means wasting their entire day off repairing the massive hole she left in the wall. Since Merdelka accidentally destroyed the inn's wall the night before, she and Haji spend the first day of their holiday doing tedious repairs. Undeterred, she considers the first day a wash and wakes up on the second day feeling incredibly optimistic. She dresses up nicely, completely determined to turn their day off into an amazing date. Meeting up with him outside, she nervously notes that the rest of the party is busy hunting. Since the two of them have no specific plans, he casually asks if there is anything she wants to do, promising he is down for anything. Gathering all of her courage, she blushes deeply and shyly asks if they can hold hands. He enthusiastically agrees, but instead of romantically intertwining their fingers, he reaches out and gives her a firm, aggressive handshake like a fellow male comrade. She is completely disappointed but secretly vows not to wash her hand for a while anyway. Hoping to salvage the romantic atmosphere, she suggests they go shopping. Her mind races with fantasies of him buying her a beautiful ring and proposing on the spot. He happily agrees, but instead of taking her to a jewelry boutique, he leads her straight into a weapons store. She watches in utter disbelief as he completely ignores her to discuss the intricacies of various blades with the shopkeeper. To make matters worse, the shopkeeper notices her incredible physique and attempts to sell her a massive, hefty mallet. Frustrated and annoyed by the unladylike suggestion, she quickly begs him to try a different store. Determined to finally get things right, she suggests they get lunch at a trendy, romantic cafe. However, her plan completely backfires once again. Instead of sharing a delicate, romantic meal, her ravenous appetite takes over. The two of them eat so much and so messily that any romantic mood completely disappears. When they leave the restaurant, they are both extremely full, and she becomes embarrassed after realizing she forgot to behave like a graceful, delicate woman. Later, Merdelka and Haji visit a fortune teller. After hearing that the psychic's predictions are very accurate, she nervously asks about how compatible she and Haji are. She immediately worries that the question sounded strange, but she still hopes for a romantic answer and closes her eyes in anticipation. The fortune teller looks into a crystal ball and excitedly says that the two of them are a perfect match. But instead of predicting romance or marriage, the psychic says they are destined to become an unbeatable battle team that will gain fame and fortune by defeating the demon lord together. Disappointed and angry by the completely unromantic prediction, she snaps at the fortune teller and demands to know if the crystal ball is broken, saying she does not care at all about fighting demons. Meanwhile, far away at a border fortress, guards panic as they spot a massive enemy airship approaching. Aboard the ship, a ruthless woman sits on a throne. Noticing a town directly in their path, she cruelly orders her forces to press ahead and run it over, relishing the thought of hearing humans cry in despair. She is Sijak, a high-ranking general in the demon army. At the psychic parlor, Merdelka desperately grabs the fortune teller, demanding to know if she and Haji will fall in love. However, a sudden, violent rumble distracts him. He alerts her that something massive is approaching the town and insists they investigate. She nearly cries from disappointment, lamenting that her perfect opportunity to be alone with him is ruined. Sympathizing with her, he apologizes, but insists the town needs their help. Outside the city walls, a massive spaceship-like mobile fortress approaches. Aboard the ship, Sijak menacingly admires the sturdy walls and orders her minions to prepare their magic bullets to show off their overwhelming strength. Standing on top of the fortress wall, he orders the intruders to stop and avoid attacking the civilian town. Thinking out loud, he senses a huge amount of evil coming from the ship and wonders how they can protect the people. When he turns to ask her for advice, he realizes she has already disappeared. Ignoring his warning, the demon general laughs and says that the demon lord's army never changes course for anyone. The ship then fires a powerful wave of missiles that completely destroys the city's defenses, knocking him and the guards to the ground. Meanwhile, she laughs wildly and commands the fortress to continue moving forward. Suddenly, her radar operator spots a lone figure standing directly in the ship's path. It is Merdelka, radiating pure fury because the demons completely crashed her date. Amused by her audacity, the general orders the ship to unleash its weapon systems, declaring the fortress has no blind spots. A massive barrage of magic bullets rains down directly onto her. Assuming the single human is dead, the general brags about going overboard. However, the operator panics, reporting that her energy is actually rising rapidly. Down below, she slowly stands up, quietly promising him she will end this quickly. Using a devastating headbutt attack called Iron Maiden, she launches herself straight upward like a rocket. She rips completely through the massive spaceship, shattering it from the inside out. As the fortress violently explodes, the demon general plummets to the ground in total disbelief, Having completely obliterated the enemy troops, she happily assumes they can finally resume their date. The guards and soldiers stand in absolute awe of her solo victory. He proudly agrees that she is an incredible partner. However, to her utter dismay, the grateful town insists on throwing a massive night-long feast in her honor. The following morning, she screams in embarrassment, tearfully apologizing to Haji before running away in utter shame. Lisa and the party's healer rush into the room to see what happened, only to find him completely crushed and bedridden. He explains that she merely tried to give him a gentle shoulder rub out of concern, accidentally leaving him in this battered condition. Shocked that a simple massage could cause so much physical trauma, they marvel at her ridiculous power. Despite his severe injuries, he insists they need to find her before she gets too far. Meanwhile, she runs until she reaches the middle of nowhere. Crying, she curses her overwhelming strength, realizing that as long as she remains this powerful, she will only ever hurt him. She decides she no longer needs her stupid strength if it means injuring the man she loves. Suddenly, she notices an ancient building nearby. A young cleric steps out and welcomes her to the class change temple. He explains that adventurers can come here to swap their current class, like mage or martial artist, for a new one, each with its own unique strengths. Hearing this, she excitedly interrupts, asking if she can become elegant and frail. The confused guide confirms it is possible. Thrilled by this sudden ray of hope, she decides to ditch her warrior status to become incredibly weak, completely convinced this will finally allow her to marry him. The guide notes that she is well above the required level 40 to make a swap and asks what she wants to become. She eagerly replies that she will take absolutely anything as long as it is frail, even offering to become a slime. Sweating, the guide awkwardly informs her that changing into a monster is not an option. Enraged by her ridiculous new clown class, Merdelka mercilessly beats the temple guide. He frantically begs her not to hit his face, apologizing profusely while explaining that there is no easy way to revert the change. To swap classes again, she must reach level 40. Sitting outside the temple, she remembers his warning that wandering around alone as a level 1 clown is essentially suicide. She briefly becomes gloomy, worrying that Haji will never recognize her in this absurd outfit. However, she refuses to throw in the towel. Remembering that defeating a rare crystal slime provides massive experience points, she hopes to quickly hit level 40 and change into a beautiful class. Venturing into the woods, she hears a rustling noise and expects to find a crystal slime. Instead, a massive, evil gorilla monster appears directly in front of her. Suddenly, several more drop from the trees, completely surrounding her. Outnumbered but determined, she tries to attack, but her new class forces her body to move on its own. Instead of fighting, she involuntarily begins performing a ridiculous, harmless clown routine. The gorillas simply stare at her in confusion while she panics, realizing she is a total goner once they finally decide to strike. Just as the gorillas prepare to attack, a massive magic blast knocks them away. Haji, Lisa, and the party's healer rush into the clearing to save her. She is completely shocked that he recognizes her in the weird costume. After he effortlessly finishes off the monsters, he explains that he used his keen senses to track her scent and footprints, assuring her that a bizarre outfit could never fool him. When he gently asks why she changed her class and ran off, she tearfully admits she was simply tired of accidentally injuring him. Haji gently reassures her, telling her not to beat herself up and insisting that they all love her just the way she is. He promises she never needs to be something she is not. The party's healer chimes in, noting that they miss the old her and promising to simply revive him if she accidentally injures him again. Touched to the point of tears by his sweetness, she eagerly agrees when he suggests they level her up to fix the situation. Suddenly, a massive swarm of rare crystal slimes appears. He excitedly points them out, noting this is the perfect opportunity. Seeing her chance to finally act like a fragile maiden in need of protection, she attempts to hide behind him. However, her clown class takes over her body again. Instead of cowering, she inexplicably grabs a stick, picks up some animal droppings, and gleefully shows it off to Lisa and the healer. As they yell at her to stop before she scares the slimes away, she mentally screams in agony, furious that her ridiculous class is humiliating her in front of the man she loves. Despite the agonizing embarrassment, the party manages to help her reach level 40. Exhausted, they return to the class change temple. Standing in front of the altar, she eagerly anticipates becoming a weak level 1 class so she can finally demand his constant protection. As a bright flash of light engulfs the room, her original appearance is restored. Overjoyed to be back to normal, she immediately spins around and throws her arms around him, yelling that she loves him. Unfortunately, she hugs him far too tightly and accidentally crushes him to death instantly. As he falls to the ground, the temple guide nervously explains that the temple made a special exception because the earlier mistake was their fault, so they restored all of her original, extremely high power. She becomes furious when she realizes he waited until after she accidentally killed the person she loves to mention such an important detail. In anger, she attacks and beats up the temple guide. Days later, Haji announces their next quest, investigating a ruined mansion reportedly haunted by the undead. Lisa and the party's healer are terrified of ghosts, but he is completely confused by their fear, noting that spirits are no different from the usual monsters they fight. Merdelka, however, sees this as a massive opportunity. She excitedly imagines acting terrified of the ghosts so she can cling to him for comfort the entire time. When they arrive at the mansion, her plan instantly derails. Instead of her clinging to him, the terrified mage and healer tightly cling to her for protection. Amused, he jokes that she is getting cozy with the ladies, which deeply frustrates her since he is treating her like one of the guys again. Desperate to be alone with him, she swiftly strikes her two teammates on the back of the neck, knocking them out cold. She leaves them safely by the entrance and catches up with him, lying that they felt sick and needed to rest. As they explore the dark corridors, she tries to set the mood by acting like a fragile maiden. Before she can ask him to hold her, he misinterprets her nervous fidgeting and asks if she needs to use the restroom. Frustrated, she tries a different angle, claiming she is much too scared of ghosts to fight them. He takes this completely literally, assuming she is worried her physical attacks will simply pass through their ethereal bodies. Completely missing the romantic cue, he casually suggests she could probably just swing her weapon fast enough to break the laws of physics. She stares at him in disbelief, wondering how he can say something so absurd with a straight face. Suddenly, a group of small, flame-shaped ghosts appears. Determined to prove her femininity once and for all, she takes a deep breath and lets out what she intends to be a helpless, high-pitched, girly scream. However, her impossibly strong lungs generate a devastating sonic shockwave instead. The scream is so powerful that it instantly destroys the ghosts, making them disappear and even shattering the nearby windows. He praises her strong sound wave attack, not realizing she screamed for a completely different reason. He only complains that the noise almost damaged his ears. In the next room, a group of stronger ghosts hears the scream. Thinking the humans must be terrified, they excitedly prepare an ambush, completely unaware that someone far more frightening is coming toward them. In the next room, two zombie brothers cautiously peek through the door. They nervously wonder why the mansion suddenly became so quiet, joking that their dead hearts feel like they are beating again. Gathering their courage, they enter the room and see a terrifying scene. Merdelka is crying uncontrollably while tightly hugging Haji so hard that he is coughing up blood. Instead of frightening her, the zombies become terrified of her incredible strength. Trembling in fear, they whisper that she is the scariest thing they have ever seen. When Merdelka notices them staring, she angrily glares at them and demands to know if they want to die for watching her embarrassing romantic moment. Outside the mansion, Lisa and the healer finally regain consciousness. Still shaking with fear, they help each other stand up. Suddenly, frightened ghosts rush out of the mansion, screaming for forgiveness and begging to return to their graves. Merdelka chases after them, angrily grabbing them by the hair and demanding that they stop smiling, while the ghosts desperately explain that their skeletal faces naturally look that way. Horrified by the brutal scene, the mage and the healer watch in stunned silence. As a result of her overwhelming rampage, the mansion becomes infamous in the underworld, and no undead ever dares to go near it again. The next day, Lisa places a fresh batch of cookies on the table. Shortly after, she notices a few are missing and wonders where they went. Meanwhile, hiding directly beneath the table is Sijak, the disgraced general of the demon army. She is stealing the cookies while plotting her revenge. After being brutally mocked and bullied by her demonic superiors for losing to a mere human and getting blamed for the destroyed fortress, she was ordered to investigate her attacker. Having finally tracked her target to the inn, she prides herself on her superior stealth abilities. As the sleepy mage yawns and walks by, the demon general flawlessly stretches the mage's cheeks without being detected, proving her camouflage is impenetrable. However, pranks are not her mission. She creeps toward Merdelka's room, swearing to salvage her ruined reputation by discovering a fatal weakness. Peeking inside, she is instantly intimidated. She finds her target doing incredibly wide splits on the floor late at night. She assumes it is some kind of intense workout until she realizes the terrifying truth. The human is actually fast asleep with her eyes wide open. Thinking the girl is completely bonkers, she reminds herself to stay on guard, remembering that a single headbutt from this monster leveled her entire mobile fortress. Relying on her stealth skills, she sneaks into the room, maintaining perfectly even breathing. She spots a diary and quickly flips through the pages, hoping to find a secret weakness. Suddenly, her target speaks up, noting there is a massive cockroach to deal with. The demon general freezes in absolute terror, convinced she has been caught. A projectile suddenly flies through the air, narrowly missing the general and obliterating the actual cockroach on the wall right above her. The terrified demon sighs in relief, thinking she survived in one piece, until she realizes the projectile actually clipped a chunk of her hair off. Now fully awake, the human decides to practice swinging her massive, lethal practice sword right there in the tiny room. Trapped on the floor, the general panics, internally begging her not to swing that giant weapon, because it will absolutely hit and kill her. Inside the room, Merdelka swings her massive practice sword with terrifying force. Hiding in the shadows, Sijak frantically dodges the lethal swings. The chaotic weapon training forces the demon general to hold her breath for so long that she nearly suffocates. Unable to endure it any longer, she hurls herself through the window to escape. Hearing the glass shatter, the human stops her workout and stares at the broken window, casually wondering if the inn will make her pay for the damages. Falling to the ground outside, the demon general groans in defeat, deciding this stealth mission is no longer worth the risk. Muttering to herself, she complains about her scraped face and the humiliating bald spot. Suddenly, Haji, who is out on night patrol, spots her. Seeing her battered state, he immediately rushes over, expressing deep concern for her awful wounds. Without hesitating, he casts a gentle healing magic over her injuries. She immediately recognizes him as the powerful human from the recent fortress battle. After quickly fixing her wounds, he kindly offers her his handkerchief to clean her face. Taken aback by the gentle gesture, she experiences a completely foreign emotion and wonders if this is what humans call gratitude. He cheerfully notes that she is already looking much better. Blushing deeply, she notices that his handkerchief smells incredibly manly, and her heart begins to pound uncontrollably in her chest. Completely overwhelmed by these strange romantic feelings, she hastily runs away into the night, suddenly mortified by the thought that her handsome new crush might have noticed her missing hair. The next day, during an expedition, Lisa and Merdelka get separated from Haji and the healer. They find themselves completely lost deep within a foggy mountain. While they know he will eventually find them, their immediate problem is severe starvation. As they trudge through the fog, her stomach growls and grumbles loudly. She complains that the mountains are terrible because not a single roaming monster has shown up for her to eat. Hearing this, the mage becomes absolutely terrified, fearing that her starving, overpowered friend might actually try to eat her, frantically pointing out that she has hardly any meat on her bones. Fortunately, she spots a large, well-lit building in the distance and declares that they are saved. As they approach, she tearfully rejoices at the sign reading, "Wild Dog Grill." The mage is highly suspicious, wondering why a restaurant would be built so deep in a treacherous mountain. However, she brushes off the concern, arguing that mountaineering is incredibly popular these days and the grill must cater to climbers. Too terrified of her friend's empty stomach to argue, the mage nervously tags along. Inside, the restaurant is completely silent, and they are met with another closed door. Frustrated by the lack of immediate food, she aggressively demands to see a manager. The mage nervously reads a sign on the door extending a special, warm welcome to fine ladies. Thrilled to be acknowledged as a fine lady, she instantly brightens up and eagerly leads the way through the door. They enter another hallway featuring yet another door. The next sign asks their esteemed patrons to excuse them because the kitchen receives numerous orders. While the mage is confused by the strange phrasing, she confidently claims she understands completely since she is a fine lady. The next sign instructs them to remove all of their gear before proceeding, while the mage panics that removing their gear will leave them completely defenseless. She has already eagerly stripped off all her heavy armor. She tells her nervous companion not to worry, promising to explain the refined ways of a fine lady to her. Merdelka confidently explains that the gear removal is simply a strict dress code, noting that upscale restaurants often have rules about what guests can wear. She insists it would be incredibly rude to walk in dressed in dirty, adventuring armor. Lisa is momentarily surprised by how sensible this logic sounds. Assuming the restaurant will provide them with stylish gowns in the next room, she eagerly hurries her terrified companion along, forcefully helping her strip off her gear despite her frantic protests. Proceeding to the next room, they find yet another door with new instructions. It directs them to take lotion from a provided jar and thoroughly massage it into every nook and cranny, while the mage stares at the weird gel in absolute horror, wondering what the restaurant plans to do with their smeared bodies. Her companion excitedly dives right in. She begins slathering the greasy lotion all over herself, completely convinced it is a high-end skincare treatment meant to protect a fine lady's skin from becoming chapped in the cold mountain air. Piecing the disturbing clues together, the mage finally realizes the horrific truth. The numerous orders from the kitchen are actually for them. She frantically tries to warn her friend that they are trapped inside a demon restaurant that cooks and eats human adventurers, desperately begging her to escape before it is too late. Completely oblivious, she refuses to leave, fully believing her luxurious night of pampering is just beginning. Meanwhile, hiding nearby, a monster closely observes the two girls. Noting that the smarter one has already figured out the trap, it ominously realizes the kitchen staff will have to go above and beyond to successfully prepare their meal tonight. Merdelka admires the swanky restaurant, briefly wishing Haji were there to share a romantic dinner with her. Lisa frantically insists that the establishment is clearly a deadly trap, but her companion dismisses the panic, stating that a true lady must always remain calm and elegant. The mage furiously points out that acting elegant is entirely unconvincing when she is stripped of her armor and greased up like a barbecue chicken. Suddenly, a man named Sakakeel appears, warmly welcoming the fine ladies to his paradise. The mage immediately recognizes him as a disguised monster, but he smoothly introduces himself as the manager. Playing directly to his target's deepest desires, he offers her a special, secret potion guaranteed to give her an idealized figure that will make her dream man fall head over heels in love. Completely invested in the promise of romance, she ignores the obvious danger. The mage desperately tries to cast a defensive spell to hold him off until the rest of the party arrives, but her magic points are completely depleted from extreme hunger. Oblivious to her friend's panic, she eagerly asks if he has any beautiful dresses to go with her new figure. He enthusiastically confirms, secretly laughing to himself because the dress is actually just salad dressing to perfectly season his meal. He urges her to drink the potion. She happily swallows the concoction, and her body immediately begins to mutate. Delighted by her transformation, the manager declares her new figure flawless and good enough to eat. Unable to hold back his hunger any longer, he drops his disguise and reveals his true, terrifying monster form, announcing that he is going to devour her right then and there. Rather than screaming in terror, she completely ignores his monstrous reveal. Still obsessing over her new look, she aggressively commands the giant beast to fetch her a full-length mirror. Terrified by her sudden, overwhelming murderous intent, the monster scrambles to obey and nervously brings her the glass. Looking at her reflection, she is left completely speechless. The potion did not make her beautiful, it simply made her incredibly chubby. Just then, Haji and the healer burst into the room to rescue them. Utterly humiliated by her new appearance, she awkwardly tries to hide. Desperate for validation, she nervously asks him if he likes chubby girls. He bluntly replies that he does not, explaining that excess weight makes adventurers dangerously slow during emergencies. Devastated by his honest rejection, she turns her absolute fury toward the monster, preparing to brutally punish him for ruining her figure. Furious about her new weight, Merdelka glares at the monster and declares that she is going to knock him into next week. Since they are in a restaurant, she mockingly offers him a menu of brutal death blows to choose from, listing off options like a bodyweight chop, a sumo-based barrage, or an endless bear hug. Hearing her terrifying threats, Sakukeel suddenly connects the dots. He frantically realizes that she matches the exact description of the legendary human monster who single-handedly demolished the Demon Lord's mobile fortress. Before he can even attempt to surrender or beg for mercy, she decides his time is up. Screaming her signature Iron Maiden attack, she unleashes a relentless back-to-back barrage of devastating hammer slaps. She completely defeats the manager, but her anger over her ruined figure is so intense that she continues to violently slap him long after the fight is over. Watching her ruthlessly beat the monster into the ground, Haji, Lisa, and the healer nervously agree that they are incredibly lucky to have her on their side. Fortunately, her superhuman metabolism burns through the potion's effects, and her figure returns to normal by the very next day. Thrilled to have her old body back, she eagerly spins around and asks him how she looks. Completely oblivious to the entire ordeal and her restored figure, he simply stares at her in confusion, genuinely asking what she is talking about. The next day, the party arrives at a large elven village. Haji is immediately surrounded by numerous elf girls, making Merdelka incredibly jealous. Ravia, the village chieftain's granddaughter, aggressively flirts with him, praising his firm pectoral muscles and thanking him for defeating an evil monster. He modestly brushes off the compliment. Watching the elf actively flaunt herself to gain his attention, she tenses up in anger. Confident that she can easily wrap him around her finger, the elf continues to flirt. Desperate to compete, she grabs his arm to show off her own firm muscles, but her overwhelming grip nearly crushes his elbow joint. Trying to ease the tension, he gently touches her bicep, explaining that truly strong muscles are not just firm, but also flexible. However, the sudden physical contact flusters her so much that she violently punches him as a knee-jerk reaction. He takes massive damage from the blow. She frantically apologizes, claiming she is just bad at handling sudden touch. Seizing the opportunity, the elf rushes over and casts a healing spell on him, boasting that she is especially talented even among magically inclined elves. He thanks the elf for saving him. Watching her rival heal him, she becomes furious with herself for acting so unladylike and violently striking him, realizing she needs to be much more tactful. That night, Lisa and the party's healer try to cheer her up, noting that she is constantly injuring him by accident. She agrees that she cannot stay depressed forever, especially since she refuses to let that scheming elf steal him away. The healer mentions that the village is hosting a festival the next day to thank them for saving the town. Suddenly, the elf approaches them, announcing that the festival's biggest draw is a beauty pageant. Although outsiders are allowed to compete, she arrogantly claims her own victory is already guaranteed. While the mage and the healer decide to sit out, she furiously accepts the challenge. She realizes it would be incredibly easy to wipe out her rival using brute strength, but she wants to completely defeat her at her own game instead. She boldly declares that if she wins the pageant, the elf must back off him completely. Annoyed, the elf accepts the terms, smugly warning her not to embarrass herself. Driven by her crushing love, she vows to win the showdown, completely unaware of what a beauty pageant actually entails. The Elven Village beauty pageant begins. The host announces that the winner will earn the title of Woman Amongst Women and enthusiastically introduces Haji as the guest announcer. When asked if he is paying special attention to any particular contestant, he cheerfully names Merdelka, calling her the pageant's dark horse due to her overwhelming physical power. Meanwhile, in the dressing room, the party's healer acts as her corner man, having frantically coached her on elegant speech and ladylike manners at the very last minute. Ravia approaches their vanity to taunt her, warning her that the first round is based on IQ and smugly reminding her of the bet's terms. Maintaining her newly forced, overly polite demeanor, she thanks the elf for the warning, and then deliberately snorts right into her rival's face. She fakes an elegant apology about being stuffed up, leaving the furious elf screaming in absolute disgust as village attendants drag her away to clean up. Thrilled by the dirty tactic, the healer initiates Operation C for the trivia round. Lisa quickly realizes the C stands for cheating. During the multiple-choice IQ test, the mage and the healer sit in the front of the audience, secretly miming the correct answers. Relying entirely on their hand signals, she slams her buzzer with lightning speed, matching the elf's score perfectly and leaving her rival completely pale with shock. As the first round ends in a narrow tie, the healer announces that round 2 will judge physical beauty. She explains that while it is essentially a swimsuit contest, the village rules strictly forbid showing more than a third of their skin. Deeply disappointed, she laments that they will not be able to use Operation N, leaving the mage absolutely terrified of what N might stand for. Refusing to let her give up, the healer insists they just need to do something incredibly flashy to wow the judges. The host enthusiastically announces that the Elven Village beauty pageant is picking up steam. He declares it is finally time for round 2, the swimsuit contest. However, to keep the male spectators' libido in check, the village has introduced a strict rule. Any contestant revealing more than a third of their body will be instantly disqualified. In the front row, the host points out the official camera crew. Confused, Haji asks what a camera is. The host explains that it is an invaluable magic tool developed by brilliant local elves that captures any sight and saves it directly onto paper. Amazed that the village possesses such advanced technology, he eagerly decides he needs to take some pictures of Merdelka. Meanwhile, the host introduces the judges, a group of average Joe villagers famous for strictly weighing in on beautiful women. Backstage, Ravia is furiously preparing for her turn. Her aura grows dark as she vows to crush her rival, swearing to make her wish she were dead. She asks the other girls how her swimsuit looks, and they assure her she looks absolutely stunning. Smug, she prepares to take the stage, fully expecting every man in the audience to kneel before her. The crowd goes wild as the host introduces the first few contestants. However, because of the strict dress code, all the girls are dressed far too modestly, and the audience's excitement quickly begins ceasing. Seeing the crowd losing interest, the host promises it is too soon to throw in the towel, noting that their two main stars are up next. First up is the village favorite. She steps out, dramatically revealing a very cute, rule-abiding swimsuit. The audience is instantly charmed by her beauty, and the host declares that her costume will undoubtedly score high. Confident in her performance, the elf wonders how her rival could possibly compete. Finally, the host introduces the last contestant. The crowd watches in absolute shock as Merdelka confidently struts onto the stage, wearing a full, formal tuxedo instead of a swimsuit. The host is utterly bewildered, wondering aloud what on earth she could possibly be planning. The final round of the Elven Beauty Pageant begins, and the host enthusiastically announces that it will be a chicken fight. Ravia and Merdelka stand next to each other as the host declares they have finally reached the pageant's climax, noting that whether it ends in tears or laughter, this round will decide the overall winner. From the front row, Haji raises his hand, and the host gives him permission to speak. He points out that in a chicken fight, the contestants must ride on someone's shoulders, and asks whose shoulders they will use. The host calls it an excellent question, explaining that since many contestants dropped out due to low scores, the runners-up will carry the two finalists. He notes that the two of them will go head-to-head, observing that things are really heating up. From the crowd, the party's healer enthusiastically cheers for her. The host announces that they will start by choosing teams. The elf moves quickly, strategically selecting teammates who are heavier and less attractive than her to make herself look better by comparison. Next, it is her turn to choose. She glares fiercely at the remaining runners-up, absolutely terrifying them. She aggressively points to three girls, demanding they join her. The host calmly asks him how he supposes she chose her teammates. He assumes she tested their courage and picked those who did not look away. Sweating, the host notes that it looks more like the girls simply froze in fear. With the teams selected based on their physical and mental qualities, the final chicken fight officially begins. Riding atop her team, the elf immediately casts a massive strength spell to buff herself and her carriers. The host excitedly notes that magic is fully allowed in the match. Meanwhile, she has not even moved yet. Her teammates struggle beneath her, profusely apologizing and complaining that she is simply too heavy to carry. Shocked, she angrily demands to know what they mean. The host yells in surprise, pointing out that the ground underneath her team is completely caving in. The elf laughs maniacally, revealing she used gravity magic to secretly crush her rival's team. Realizing her weight is not the issue, she becomes furious. Taking advantage of their immobility, the elf boldly mutters an incantation and hurls a frenzy of lightning lances directly at them. The host screams that it is a brutal follow-up attack, leaving her and her team as sitting ducks. The elf smiles smugly, absolutely certain her victory is confirmed as long as she maintains her long-range assault. However, the host suddenly shouts that the match is not over yet. As the smoke clears, she emerges completely unfazed. She angrily brushes off the dirt, shouting that the attack actually hurt, proving she is still very much in the game. Ravia observes that her opponent is still in the game, begrudgingly acknowledging her stubbornness. Breathing heavily with sheer anger, Warrior Woman prepares to go completely berserk. Sereno, the pageant's host and a veteran announcer of 22 years, comments that her bloodlust is palpable and eagerly predicts a gruesome finale. Sereno notes that distance is the ultimate deciding factor in this match. If Ravia keeps up her long-range magic attacks, Warrior Woman's exhausted team will eventually drop her. Refusing to let that happen, Warrior Woman decides to forcefully close the gap. Taking a martial arts stance, she throws a massive straight punch. Even though she is entirely too far away to land a normal hit, she forces her arm to extend. By violently dislocating her own shoulder, elbow, and wrist, her fist shoots forward like a zooming missile directly toward Ravia. Ravia freezes like a deer in headlights, but miraculously manages to dodge the extended fist at the very last second. Sereno observes that the sheer wind force generated by the punch would have knocked Ravia's team completely out if the elf hadn't magically reinforced them earlier. The extreme attack leaves Warrior Woman trembling in agonizing pain, her dislocated arm completely out of commission. Priest and mage scream from the audience, desperately begging her to stop fighting because they cannot bear to see her hurt anymore. However, she refuses to call it quits. She internally apologizes to her friends, declaring that she cannot afford to lose this fight because her pride as a woman and Hiro's affection are on the line. Relying on her remaining right arm, she winds up for another devastating punch. The air literally splits around her fist as she strikes. Ravia ducks under the blow once again, prematurely celebrating her victory. However, Ravia's momentary relief is her ultimate downfall. Warrior Woman was fully expecting the dodge. Using her teammates as a springboard, she abandons her mount and leaps high into the air. Sereno screams in absolute awe as she takes flight, comparing her majestic mid-air posture to a legendary soaring phoenix. Warrior Woman's devastating punch throws Ravia completely off balance. Taking advantage of the opening, Warrior Woman dives forward with everything she has. Ravia panics, initially assuming she can just blow her opponent away with magic since Warrior Woman cannot even use her injured right arm. However, in the very next instant, Warrior Woman shifts into high gear and launches into a high-speed somersault. Recognizing the martial arts move, Hiro shouts from the audience that she is going to put her opponent in a devastating headlock using the Dragon Jaw technique. Realizing it is completely impossible to evade the grapple and refusing to go down so easily, Ravia makes a drastic choice. Her flesh suddenly emits a blinding light, and thick, violent winds whip across the stage. Refusing to lose, the elf triggers an infamous, massive self-immolation magic originally meant for destroying demon lords, completely blowing herself up in the middle of the pageant. As the smoke clears, Sereno comments that taking the brunt of such a catastrophic attack would normally mean instant death. But knowing Warrior Woman, the normal rules of reality do not apply. Unbelievably, she is still standing, having executed a perfect guardian stance to absorb the immense explosion. Hiro and the rest of the crowd celebrate her unbelievable durability, getting goosebumps at her display of sheer physical strength. She simply smiles through the smoke, happy that she fought so hard for Hiro's affection. Later, Sereno rushes to start the award ceremony. Because Ravia is currently being revived by healers after blowing herself up, they proceed with a quick version of the event. Warrior Woman is absolutely thrilled, assuming this victory officially makes her the pageant winner. While she doesn't care much about the prize itself, she eagerly anticipates being crowned Woman Amongst Women, entirely convinced that Hiro will finally see her as a beautiful, delicate maiden. However, Sereno steps up to the microphone and declares that because this was the most intense pageant the village has ever seen, the judges decided to give her a special title instead. He asks the crowd to put their hands together to crown their new, majestic king. Furious that they completely stripped her of her womanhood to give her a masculine title, Warrior Woman immediately gives the announcer a brutal beating. Not far from the elven village, the party visits a famous hot spring landmark. Priest explains that the gushing warm water purifies the skin and energizes the body. Hiro eagerly agrees to the detour, and Mage excitedly anticipates getting silky smooth skin. However, as they walk to the lodge, the mage notices Priest letting out a strange, suspicious laugh. That evening, the three girls enter the spacious, beautiful women's bath. Priest notes that while rules vary from place to place, this particular hot spring allows women to wear towels, and the cloudy water provides excellent cover. As they relax in the welcoming steam, Priest dramatically declares that all their built-up tension could easily lead to a classic hot spring misunderstanding, involving sneaking a look at someone they're not supposed to see. Warrior Woman chuckles, calling Priest silly and insisting that Hiro would never do anything like that. Priest quickly corrects her, clarifying that she means they might try to secretly observe him instead. This sudden role reversal completely freaks Mage out, but Warrior Woman is immediately intrigued and urges Priest to explain her idea. Priest asks if Warrior Woman has ever actually seen a man up close before. Realizing she hasn't, Warrior Woman begins to panic. Priest jokes that because she lacks real-life reference, her romantic imagination of Hiro always gets awkwardly interrupted by censorship-like effects in her mind. To fix this, Priest claims they should at least try to sneak a quick look to satisfy their curiosity. Mage quietly stays out of the conversation, secretly admitting she has already seen him before. Inside Warrior Woman's mind, a fierce battle rages between her inner angel and inner devil. The devil urges her to take a look, fully expecting resistance, but the angel immediately agrees, saying she is also curious. Breaking out of her thoughts, Warrior Woman blurts out that she wants to see Hiro and awkwardly ends up joining the Curiosity mission. Priest enthusiastically links arms with Warrior Woman, and the two set off while Mage watches them go, seriously questioning whether their party has completely lost its sanity. Warrior Woman eagerly asks for the plan. Priest points to an underwater vent connecting the two baths, explaining that removing the iron bars would allow them to pass through and check on the men's side of the bath area out of curiosity. Using just her toes, Warrior Woman effortlessly rips the heavy iron grate off, thoroughly impressing Priest. When they debate who should go first, Priest claims the role of mastermind. However, Mage awkwardly volunteers since she is the smallest, then quickly regrets it under their stunned silence. Seizing the opportunity, Warrior Woman declares she will scout ahead and make sure it's safe. Secretly, she plans to stop the others from going further while also dealing with the situation herself. Without further delay, she dives into the underground vent. She reaches the far side but quickly realizes the passage is too small and gets stuck. Running out of air, she panics. She knows she could break free easily, but doing so would create noise and risk exposing everything. Despite the danger, her curiosity pushes her forward, and she forcefully breaks through the exit. Gasping for air, she immediately starts rambling an excuse, only to find she has emerged in front of a random old man instead of her intended target. Completely confused and furious, she punches the old man and demands to know what happened to the person she expected to see. Meanwhile, back in the women's bath, Mage nervously wonders if they even confirmed whether Hiro was in the public bath at all. Priest admits she only assumed he was there. In reality, Hiro is completely unaware of everything, peacefully enjoying a private soak elsewhere. The next day during an expedition, Warrior Woman loudly panics when Hiro casually asks if she would like anything as a gift. She immediately misinterprets the question, completely convinced he is basically confessing his love and preparing to propose. Thrilled that all of her efforts are finally paying off, she desperately tries to keep a cool head, realizing her answer could dictate the rest of her life and guarantee her wedded bliss. She considers giving a modest answer, imagining herself saying she only needs him, 3 square meals a day, and plenty of meat and naps. However, she worries that giving an abstract answer will make him think less of her. Deciding she wants a classic diamond wedding ring, she opts to give him a subtle hint so he can choose it himself. Hoping it symbolizes that their love will last forever, she tells him she wants something that is really shiny, hard, and impressive. Taking her literal words to heart, he agrees to look for something fitting and suggests they head back to town to rest. Determined to look the part of a perfect bride, she spends the next week training intensely. She meditates, lifts heavy weights, and eats massive amounts of food to ensure she is in peak physical condition for her marriage. On the night before the big day, she completely deprives herself of sleep to hand-sew her own dress. The next morning, Mage and Priest are absolutely jaw-dropped when she steps out wearing a handmade wedding gown and carrying a custom bouquet. Bidding them farewell, she eagerly heads to the venue. She meets Hiro under the town's legendary tree, a famous landmark where couples who get engaged are guaranteed everlasting happiness and wedding bells. Approaching him, she practically vibrates with excitement, absolutely certain the romantic location is no coincidence. He warmly greets her, announcing that he had something specially crafted just for her. Hearing this, she eagerly prepares to say yes, completely ready to spend forever with him. Hiro excitedly explains that he had to get a team of craftsmen to deliver the gift because it is incredibly big and heavy. Warrior Woman gasps internally, wildly wondering how many freaking carats of diamond that massive must be and marveling that he bought her something so outrageously pricey. 3 exhausted men struggle to carry the massive object over to the legendary tree. When they finally drop it onto the ground with a heavy thud, her romantic illusion shatters. The special custom-crafted gift is not a diamond ring, but a gigantic, brutal weapon. Completely oblivious to her utter shock, he cheerfully explains that since she leveled up so much recently, she deserves a much stronger weapon to match her incredible stats. Proudly presenting the priceless, dwarven-forged club, he notes that it is extremely hard, impressive, and shiny, matching her exact request perfectly. He eagerly urges her to try it out. As she numbly hefts the massive club while still wearing her handmade wedding dress, he brightly compliments her, declaring that she looks like an absolute demon. Heartbroken and desperately clinging to her last shred of hope, she hesitantly stammers, trying to bring up the subject of getting married. Completely misunderstanding her, he assumes she is asking if the new weapon is marred. He laughs off the concern, assuring her that since the club is brand new, it obviously does not have a single scratch or mar on it yet. Wanting to cry, but forcing a painful, trembling smile, she tells him she suddenly feels an overwhelming urge to go hunt monsters. Venting her crushing romantic frustration, she immediately rushes off into the wild. Swinging her massive new club with terrifying, tireless rage, she rampages so hard that she ends up leveling up all over again. On their next expedition, the party discovers a massive treasure trove. Hiro excitedly wants to open everything, but Priest urges caution. The mage analyzes the room and points out a single chest emitting a dangerous, different kind of energy. Terrified, Priest immediately recognizes it as a mimic, a deadly monster disguised as a treasure chest that pounces on careless adventurers. They safely open all the normal chests, finding only boring items like gold pieces and medicine. Hiro stares at the mimic, completely tempted because mimics are known for guarding incredibly rare items. Priest desperately begs him not to open it, warning that mimics are high-level threats capable of casting instant death spells. However, Warrior Woman enables his bad idea, boasting that as the hero's party, their combined power can easily defeat a measly little mimic. Hiro agrees, but strictly orders everyone to attack gently so they do not accidentally break the rare loot inside. They proceed to open the chest, but the mimic immediately gets the jump on them. Bursting open with a terrifying screech, long tentacles, jagged teeth, and monstrous hands shoot out. Before anyone can react, Hiro instantly perishes. Furious that the monster took her man, Warrior Woman prepares to attack. Priest tells her to calm down, promising to cast a revive spell on Hiro while she handles the monster. Honoring Hiro's final request to be gentle, Warrior Woman carefully attempts to shave the top off the chest. However, the mimic is incredibly fast and easily dodges. It rapidly shoots its tentacles at Priest, wrapping around her and suspending her in the air. Panic sets in as Priest realizes the monster gets to move twice in one turn and she cannot cast her revival magic while bound. Taking its second turn, the mimic quickly wraps its tentacles around Mage as well. Hanging from the ceiling, Priest calmly notes that a tentacle monster is the quintessential anime trope, meaning it definitely plans to do naughty things to them. Warrior Woman yells at her for bringing up such nonsense during a crisis. Absolutely disgusted by the prospect, Priest decides she would rather die than endure that fate, and she instantly perishes from pure shock. Suspended and freaking out, Mage screams that Warrior Woman is their only hope. However, Warrior Woman completely ignores the monster. Instead, she hovers closely over Hiro's lifeless body. Muttering that simply talking to him will not work, she leans in, declaring she has to do it herself. Watching her prepare to do something highly suspicious to his lips, Mage screams in utter confusion, having no idea Warrior Woman possessed any revival abilities. Warrior Woman proudly shouts that she isn't using a magic ability at all. She plans to use a romantic confession to revive Hiro. Hanging from the ceiling, Mage frantically asks what kind of spell a confession is, crying out that she just wants to go back to her last save point. Preparing herself, Warrior Woman becomes incredibly nervous. She realizes this is her very first time confessing her feelings to him, but she resolves to be brave and do it for everyone's sake. Meanwhile, unable to handle the sheer stress and absurdity of the situation, Mage finally perishes. Just before Warrior Woman can plant her kiss on Hiro, the mimic shoots a tentacle and wraps her up as well. Deeply annoyed by the interruption, she casually tells the dead hero to hold on a second. Without any effort, she brutally rips the tentacles right off her body, furiously screaming at the monster for daring to interrupt her romantic moment. She calls it a glorified trash can and violently smashes it into pieces. She easily defeats the mimic, but instantly becomes frustrated. Looking at the crushed chest, she realizes she completely failed to honor Hiro's last request to beat the monster gently. Wallowing in misery over ruining the rare loot, Warrior Woman leaves the dungeon, effortlessly dragging 3 heavy coffins behind her. En route to the town's temple to revive her 3 fallen companions, she gets completely lost. She treks alone across the Valley of Nightmares, the Desert of Death, and the Forest of No Return, battling countless terrifying enemies along the way. Yet, legend has it that despite dragging 3 coffins through the most deadly zones in the world, Warrior Woman remains completely unscathed through it all.